Celebrate good times. Come on. Do. Celebrate good times. Come on. Let's have a good time. All right. Let's do the damn thing, folks. Let's do the damn thing.
Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
Thank you so much for 50K. I did a special thank you video that I actually uploaded on Twitter. So I'm actually going to go ahead and get started with that. Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in really quick and just say thank you so much. Sabby Sabs podcast has reached 50,000 subscribers. I was just told by Kit from Hardlands Media. So shout out to Kit for letting me know. I was not paying attention. I was not expecting this to happen today. According to Social Blade, this wasn't supposed to happen until the end of September going into October. So sorry. That being said, I do just want to say thank you guys to all of you, all of the viewers. Thank you for hanging in there with me through all my imperfections. I'm not perfect. I started Sabby Sabs podcast 2 years ago. Just something I was doing on the side while I was working at Boston University. And I did not expect it to become what it's become now. So I'm still kind of shocked. I think it's not possible for me to be where I am right now if it wasn't for some of the other networks and people that really did like platform me and promote me and give me like shout outs. And that's got to start off with, of course, Revolutionary Blackout Network. I started Sabby Sabs podcast before I was a part of RBN, but a couple months after I started the show, they reached out and asked me to join RBN. That's how a lot of you found me. And also I got to give shout outs to Hardlands Media. They were one of the first people to actually bring me on. Also shout out to Jimmy Dore, of course, like Jimmy Dore brought me on. He also was actually the first big guest that I had on Sabby Sabs podcast. I think a lot of you found me that way as well, from what I've heard from you. But also shout out to The Hill Rising for continuing to give people the opportunity to hear what I have to say. And I want to say to people that had it not been for those networks and other people giving me a chance to actually just talk, I don't think I'd be sitting here with you right now saying thank you so much for 50K subscribers. I think for those of us that came in after the Bernie wave, it's been really hard on YouTube to even build an audience, let alone people find you. That's the more difficult part. The algorithm has been very difficult to work with. It's not the same as it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And so I think that has been the most difficult part, like people finding you. Like I took a chance. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was academic advisor working at Boston University. This was something that I did on the side for fun. I did not expect much to come from it. I was really frustrated politically. I haven't been a part of the Bernie movement, really thinking that we had a shot, we had a chance, and then seeing these politicians just cave and just become a part of Democrat establishment. I was really frustrated and I needed a place to voice that opinion besides Facebook. Apparently Facebook doesn't like that too much. This isn't everybody's cup of tea. I totally understand that. I try to talk to people that don't necessarily agree with me. I think it's kind of boring sometimes when you only interview people that agree with you. So there have been times when I've interviewed guests that you guys love, and there have been times when I've interviewed guests that you guys absolutely despise and you tell me. And I'm just here to let you know again, like, I think it's important that people hear different perspectives. That doesn't mean that you have to change your way of thinking and agree with the guest that's coming on. But what it does mean is that there may be something that that guest that you disagree with may say that you may actually agree with. But you may not know that if you don't get the opportunity to even hear what they have to say. So I think it's important to hear different voices and different opinions. I think it's important that we're not just bringing on people that agree with us on everything. Again, I think that's really boring. Like, you guys, with your constructive feedback, you've really helped me a lot. When I do really well, you tell me. And when I screw up, you also tell me. And it's important for me to hear that feedback. I may not always respond, but I see every email, I see everyone that comes through, and it does make me stop and think about what I'm doing and focus on those things. But I cannot improve if it's not for that feedback from you. So I do appreciate that, because you guys really do help me grow and you educate me as well. The growth for me, that tells me that now there are more people out there who are going to hear the message, more people out there who are going to hear about the community organizing events. They're going to hear about mutual aid. They're going to hear that message. And that is very important to me. And you guys have really come through in reference to community organizing and mutual aid and participating at a lot of these rallies. Thank you guys so much. We were able to raise a lot of money for the mutual aid barbecue here in Boston. Nick right now is organizing for an event to purchase school supplies for kids in Kansas City. So I think that we are getting that message out there to more people. And it's all because of you guys. You guys have really been supporting us from day one. And we'll see where this journey takes us. And I hope you'll be there with me. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrinasalvati, and we have reached 50K subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I made that video earlier this morning. It was actually Kit from Hardlands Media contacted me and said, congrats on 50K. And I was like, what? Because I wasn't really paying attention. And it's true. Like, if I look at Social Blade, which I do look at that site, it usually has been pretty spot on in reference to future projections. So it was projected that I would reach 50K by the end of September, that last week going into October. But something happened, something changed. So anyway, thank you guys so much. We'll get to celebrate tonight a little bit on call in. I'm super pumped. Like, I was not expecting this morning, so I had no like speech or anything prepared. And usually I don't make a video when I get a certain amount of subscribers, but this is a milestone that I never thought that I would actually reach. So thank you. Thank you so much. I know it's different over here. It's a little different. Some people watch the show and they're like, excuse me, is this a Democrat or Republican? Which side are you on? I'm not on either side. And that may not be for some people. Some people want to hear a side and they want to watch someone who's on a side. And I think that a lot of us, those of you watching that were a part of like that Bernie movement, we saw how much momentum we had and how much energy we had to actually implement some type of change. And then we saw it all just be taken away. So I had to say to myself, something is wrong with the system, because there's no way that you can go fill up a stadium of people, 10,000 people. I saw you at Boston Common. There's no way you have those numbers of people come out and you lose. And that's how I found out the game was rigged. And I said, there has to be another way to implement some type of change. And I'm very fortunate that I found RBN, that I found JB and Nick and CJ and Rome, and even members that were part of that before then when we were FHL, because for a while I thought I was sitting on an island by myself. And then I saw there are other people who see that this is all screwed up and there has to be something else to do differently. So for those who say we tell you to do nothing, that's BS. We tell you to organize within your community. We tell you to do mutual aid. We tell you to work locally and help out the people in your community, and that no politician is going to be your hero. No politician is going to come and save you. And that's not just something that I learned from the Bernie movement. It's something I've learned from personal experience. Mutual aid actually does work. It actually does help people. And I'm not seeing politicians do the same. So thank you guys so much. And shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And welcome to Sabby Sabs Podcast. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs Podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays and Fridays, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. But we are about to get in it tonight. And thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. I'm still shocked. I don't really know what to say. Oh, thank you so much, Louis. Your voice is needed, Sabby. You and Eric T. Red are doing a great job. Thank you. Shout out to my comrade, JB. I told Sabby 2 weeks ago that she would reach 50K by mid-August. I was right. You were right. You've been right about a lot of these things about people hitting certain points, because you were also right when you said Jimmy was going to reach 1 million. You were right about that too, about the timestamp. But yeah, man. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Okay. I know there's a lot of comments, but we're going to do call in, so we'll be able to chat there and all that fun jazz. But I do want to start out just by giving you a quick update on a story that I covered about a week ago about the U.S. soldier that decided to cross the borderline from South Korea to North Korea. At that point in time, we were trying to figure out, why would he do this? Was he running away from something? Doesn't he know it's not going to be good for him to go there? Well, he finally actually has responded. And I just want to give you a quick update in reference to that story. North Korea says U.S. soldier Travis King wants to stay because he's unhappy with America's unequal society, blames racial discrimination in the U.S. Army. So that's an important piece. I just wanted to give you an update on that. So they have heard from him now. And apparently that is the reason why he decided to run to North Korea. So he was running away from something. Wanted to start off with that. We're going to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who's a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support for doing the damn thing. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also those Sabbies. And of course, members. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a special shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Kathleen Malas and Vive Louette. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, guys. We have some things to discuss tonight. I have more information about these fires in Hawaii. We're definitely going to get into that. Of course, you know, Obama had to make his appearance. You know how he does what he does. But let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail. We'll go ahead and get started. Tonight, we are going to discuss Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey, Hawaii. What do they have to do in reference to this situation? And why should you be somewhat concerned about what they're saying versus what they're doing? We're also going to discuss Glenn Greenwald's Trump alert. Now, you guys do know that Donald Trump has received another indictment. This one is in reference to Georgia. Glenn Greenwald had a really interesting take on this that I think needs to be heard. We're going to show a little bit of what he said there about some of this hypocrisy that I think needs to be called out. We're also finally going to discuss the viral song update from Oliver Anthony here. This song has been getting a lot of attention and apparently has caused some type of stir amongst people politically. We're going to get into that. And where do we think Oliver North actually sits on the political spectrum? I have some updates in reference to that, thanks to Indie Left News. And we're also going to discuss Vermont wins. And I think I'll throw in Utah too, because each of them only have one ballot measure. So we'll lump those bad boys together. We're going to get started with this song that went viral by Oliver Anthony. Now, you've probably heard the song a million times by now. I'm not going to play the song on here because of copyright. If it wasn't copywritten before, it probably is now because it's a viral sensation. So I don't want to take that risk. But I am going to read the lyrics to you because I think it is very important. Now, this is Oliver Anthony. So he wrote a song called The Northmen of Richmond. And for some of you, if you're not familiar with Virginia, maybe you didn't know what he meant by that, but Richmond is in the middle of the state, and north of Richmond, I'm assuming he's referring to Washington, D.C., right? Richmond doesn't get as much attention as you think it would. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of forgotten about because Northern Virginia, also known as Nova, gets a lot of attention because it's right outside of Washington, D.C. So most people are more familiar with like Fairfax, Alexandria, Virginia, that area. But he wrote this song and he made some criticisms in reference to the economy and class. And I think that what he said is important for people to hear. Now, there are some phrases in this song that people do have trouble with. And there are also recent accusations of him being a conservative plant, that he was planted there by conservatives to stir up some sort of outcry among the people. First, I want to play this clip from him here. He's actually responding to all of the excitement and sensation that has come from that song that he sang. So I want you to hear from Oliver Anthony first.
Y'all are crazy. Somebody just sent me a screenshot that Richmond, north of Richmond, is #1 on iTunes. And I don't even have words. I don't even know. So everybody's been asking me about shows. I've got one kind of last minute set up in Eastern North Carolina, Currituck, North Carolina, this coming Sunday, August 13th, at the Morris Farm Market. So that's the Morris Farm Market, Currituck, North Carolina, August 13th. I'm playing from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. and I will stay until 2:30 a.m. if I have to. But I promise, if you show up, if you're willing to come and listen to me, I am willing to stay and listen to you. I'm going to shake your hand. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear your story. And if you're more than a few hours away from Currituck, don't sweat it. Like, don't make this into a big trip. There's no rush with this. Like, I'm going to be playing a lot of shows, a lot of local venues. I'm going to take my time with things. Like, I want to get to know all of you. This is not about me. This is about you. And I can't emphasize that enough. And so it's going to take it. Things are going to be slow. Like, the social media is going to be a little bit slow. Like, things aren't going to just happen overnight, because I'm not rushing into this. Like, I'm not rushing into a bunch of paperwork. This isn't about me at all. So, thank you for your patience. Like, thanks for not just totally jumping down my throat. Like, I saw a lot of comments saying, get this on Spotify and iTunes. And I'm like freaking out trying to make it happen. And, you guys and girls are awesome. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. And if you're around Currituck, North Carolina, I'll see you on Sunday. We'll have a good old time. All right. Keep sending those emails and those messages. They're not unheard. Even if they are unresponded to for now, that'll change. So I love hearing from you. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, so that was the response from Oliver Anthony, and I want to read you these lyrics because I think that it is important to hear what he's saying here. So you're probably familiar with this particular picture of him singing there. Here are the lyrics to Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond. Again, for those just joining, I'm not going to play it because it may have copyright now, especially since the song is viral and we're not trying to go down that path. So let's look at what he's saying here. Let me go ahead and scoot this over just a little bit. I'll make it a little bit. Okay. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for BS pay. So I can sit out here and waste my life away. Drag back home and drown my troubles away. This particular piece right here, I don't think is uncommon. I don't think it's uncommon for people who are working these long hours. When they finally get home, they're like, I'm just going to crack open a beer or a glass of wine and just kind of escape, right? But people working overtime, working all those hours, and the pay is so small, and it seems like you're still not getting ahead. And sometimes you're working overtime hours and you're getting like time and a half, depending on your job and depending on who you work for. It doesn't happen for everybody. Sometimes you're getting time and a half, but then sometimes when you look at the taxes that have been taken out, it's like, was it even worth it? So think about that. Precor says it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is. Living in the new world with an old soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do. And they don't think you know, but I know that you do. Because your dollar ain't shit and it's taxed to no end. Because of rich men north of Richmond. Let's talk about this piece right here where he says they want to have total control. They want to know what you think and what you do. Well, that goes into when we look at issues like Edward Snowden, we look at issues like Julian Assange, like the government wanting to watch us and wanting to know who we're talking to, who we're meeting with, having their hands in the back end of social media and seeing who's communicating with who, trying to censor people, trying to suppress information. Again, the men in DC is who he's referring to. And it's true. It's almost like we're all just in a bubble and we're just being controlled, right? Ants marching. I wish politicians would look out for minors and not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and this obese milking welfare. This is the piece right here that some people have a problem with, the welfare piece. Now, Midwestern Marks announced on Twitter that they are going to be interviewing Oliver Anthony, and maybe they will be able to ask him about what he's referring to here. But a lot of people see this and they think immediately the welfare state, right? They think, is he criticizing the welfare state? Is he saying that all people on welfare are overweight or fat or whatever? Don't know. We don't really know for sure until we hear from him. But he talks about the people in the street and they don't have anything to eat. Look at the escalating homeless rates. It just continues to increase. He talks about the miners. He's talking about the people working in the mines. And also, he said, not just the miners on an island somewhere. That's a reference into Jeffrey Epstein, right? So let's continue. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. This piece right here, people have problem with. That if you're 5'3", you're 300 pounds and 300 pounds, that taxes ought not to pay for your bag of fudge rounds. And let's talk about that for a second. One thing I will say is this: JB and I just had this conversation about wealth inequality and about being poor on RBN. Actually, just a couple minutes ago, we just finished that discussion. And I want to say this. It's not my place to tell people what to eat. It really isn't. But I think what I would say, if I talk to Oliver Anthony, I would say to him, you know, maybe we should be asking why people have to be on welfare in the first place. Why do people have to have food stamps? Goes back to the poverty issue, complete poverty. I think it would be also great if maybe when Midwestern Marks talks to him, if they can talk to him a little bit about MMT, about how money actually works in the government. But it's really not my place to tell people what to eat. But I think that's really not the issue. The issue is not what they're eating and their weight. The issue is, why do people have to be on food stamps in the first place? Because of poverty. Look at the grocery store prices. Every week this summer that I've gone to the grocery store, the prices increase every week. This inflation is a poor problem. And it's just continuing to get worse. So if your pay is not increasing, but the grocery store prices are increasing, obviously you're going to buy the cheaper items. Items like fudge rounds The junk foods, the processed foods tend to be cheaper. The healthier items cost more. That's also a problem that we have in this country. Why does our country do this to us? Why are healthy options expensive, but junk food is cheap? It's almost like if you're poor, they just want you to eat bad food. Well, there's more that goes along with this. So that song really took off and went viral. And to me, I was just kind of like, I totally get where he's coming from about the rich men north of Richmond. They don't care. The politicians don't care about us. They care about their donors. They're tied to corporations. They're tied to the military industrial complex. The poverty crisis that we have in this country shouldn't even exist in a country as wealthy as the United States of America. But it does. Too many people at the top take so much money, or few people at the top take so much money, and most of us are at the bottom. Even some of us who think we're not at the bottom, when we look at what the billionaires are making, we're still at the bottom, right? Now people are saying that because conservatives embrace this song, and it's not just conservatives, by the way, but because some conservatives are supporting his lyrics and supporting his message, they believe he's a plant. Now, I want to bring up this article here from Variety. I want you to see this. Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond is an instant smash among conservatives, while progressives wonder if he's a plant. So I want to get into this a little bit here. Is viral sensation Oliver Anthony too good to be true, too right to be true, or an authentic working class hero, which is something to be? Since the Virginia natives' Rich Men North of Richmond song began taking off from out of nowhere less than a week ago, the Appalachian country folk singer has been acclaimed by freshly minted fans as a phenomenon of the people and accusers by detractors of harboring ugly right-wing attitudes or suspected of being an industry plant. Let me say something here for just a second. If someone's talking about struggling, being poor, not making enough money, the politicians in DC trying to have total control, what about that actually makes them a conservative? If someone's talking about the class issue, why would you automatically paint them as a conservative? Didn't Bernie Sanders talk about the class issue? Think about that. The suspicions of progressive music fans have largely to do with the fast numbers he's racked up as an independent artist with supposedly no industry backing whatsoever. The Richmond video, hosted not on his YouTube page, but that of a site that promises real music, real people, real culture, has racked up 12 million views in 6 days. The red bearded upstart has accumulated over 341,000 Twitter/X followers within days of registering on the site. On the iTunes download chart, he has the top 3 songs as of this writing and 5 of the top 10. And while paid downloads are hardly a solid measure of broad success nowadays, Anthony's breakout tune has cracked the top 10 on much more indicative one, Spotify's Daily USA Top 50. It's a phenomenon not unlike the recent rise of Jason Aldean's similarly right-rousing Tried That in a Small Town, but with a literally friendlier face. His critics maintain he is punching down as well as up with the song's lyrics about the obese milking welfare, as well as the supposed fat cats in Washington, D.C. that are ostensibly the main target of the tune. What's known about Anthony, who has a minimal news or paper trail up to this point, comes largely through a YouTube monologue he put up a few days before releasing Rich Men. In that speech, he declares himself nonpartisan. Now, hold on to that piece right there. He declares himself nonpartisan. Because even those of us now, those of us who are registered independents, those of us who say we're not part of either one of these parties, have you guys noticed that's automatically a smear to be conservative? I get that smear. I sit pretty dead center down the aisle on politics and always have, Anthony says, facing the camera from behind the wheel. I remember as a kid the conservatives wanting war and me not understanding that. And I remember a lot of the controversies when the left took office, and it seems like, both sides serve the same master. And that master is not someone of any good to people of this country. But if an artist is known by the fans they keep, the highest profile fans Anthony has quickly accumulated are very much on the right side of the aisle. Insta supporters like the former Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake, MTG, Firebrand commentator Matt Walsh, former Mumford and Sons banjoist turned political gadfly Winston Marshall, and far-right country figure John Rich, who said he has had long conversations with Anthony and offered to produce and finance a full album. If Anthony wants to prove the centrism he professes by picking up some less partisan public figures as fans, he may have his work cut out for him, given the way he's instantly been embraced as a hero to the right. And they show a tweet here from Kari Lake, who's supporting it. Goes on here to say, whether Anthony really is an ideologue in good old boys clothing remains to be seen. He has several other songs up on YouTube or TikTok, and he refers to pot a lot more than he does politics. When he does stick to social issues, he doesn't seem to like a political scientist exactly. The only 3 issues he addresses in his plaints against politicians are high taxes, welfare queens, and child trafficking. His focus on the latter, which is the sole topic he addresses in his YouTube monologue, has led to suspicion that he may harbor or represent QAnon views, since that is a key bugaboo of that movement, although he has been limited in how conspiratorial he has publicly gotten. So let's go on here for a second, because I have a couple of things to say. As it stands right now, do they actually have solid proof that he is a plant? Do they have solid proof that he is a conservative, or he has been put there by conservative? I have a couple of things that I want to show you. Now, this is a Facebook post from Anthony from February 24th of 2022. I want you to see this. He says, as an American, I support and stand with Joe Biden. He has changed this country for the better. Those who live off government assistance are parasites to this country. Joe is what a true American is, hardworking and not taking handouts. Those on the right who sit on their asses and complain about the left are not this country. A true Democrat is this country, and that is Joe. That's support for Joe Biden. I'm showing this because I don't think a lot of people have seen this, because this isn't on Twitter. This is on Facebook. So he supported Joe Biden. Again, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just showing you what I found. Now, that's something there to really, truly think about. Now, I ask you this. I think I'm missing a thing here. The squirrel. There's a squirrel account on Twitter. I don't know if you guys have seen this account. This account has a lot of followers. I don't think they follow anyone, but it's called @ZSquirrel. They found some receipts that they believe point to Oliver Anthony being a plant. I want to show you this. This is ZSquirrel. I'll make this larger for you guys, and then I'll zoom in on the receipts. LOL, some MAGA account just exposed the ginger bearded guy whining about welfare queens and high taxes as a conservative industry plant, astroturfed into existence by all the Daily Wire freaks and some right-wing social media promoter. Dan Bongino then confirms it. So let's see what they have here. I hate that you guys can't see it like this. I hate that Twitter's like that. But anyway, I'm going to read it to you. So this is from Lucky, the MAGA Hawk. It says, I didn't want to comment on all of this because Oliver Anthony seems like a genuinely great guy, but Matt Walsh's sanctimonious word vomit forced my hand. And I'm going to go right down to this part right here. Jason Howerton seems to be a key player involved in the astroturfing campaign. He's the CEO of Reach Digital, which helps media companies and political influencers grow their social media footprint exponentially. Jason was one of the first accounts heavily promoting this song as he provided a background on Oliver Anthony and his faith. Jason indicates that Oliver Anthony had been contacted to record the song. Jason also admits he even covered the cost to produce the record. So who wrote the song? And how did so many big right-wing accounts have the video ready to post simultaneously? You can like the song and like its message without gaslighting us into believing this was an authentic viral hit by a simple country man with a mic and a guitar. Launch a product, get over 1.3 million hits overnight was the article Mr. Howerton shared on LinkedIn. This was another conservative Inc. AstroTurf campaign. And then I'll zoom in here. You can see. So this is Jason Howerton. That's who they're referring to. Okay. Now, let me go to the next one. Did I click on the whole thing? Yeah. Okay. So let me go to the next one so you can see the other response. The right-wing bro, everything is a psyop. The crowd fell for one of the most obvious actual psyops because, of course, they did. So you see it says here, everything around us is fake. A guy in the woods pouring his heart over his guitar is real. That's from Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh knows this was high production value video that they wanted to make look simple and folksy and rustic. Just a forgotten man with his microphone and his guitar singing in the woods of Virginia surrounded by only his dogs. The entire concept was likely dreamt up by Daily Wire Con Inc. Laboratory. Let's go on. By the way, just so you know how the conservative movement operates, the only reason this MAGA account exposed this is because that right-wing social media promoter guy is a supporter of Ron DeSantis, they call him Ron DeSantis, and critical of Trump. If he had been pro-Trump, all of this would have remained hidden. And so it goes on here where they say, I love the right wing on right wing violence. And it's just people arguing about this here. But then apparently Dan Bongino blocked this squirrel account. So if I click on here, it's people arguing back and forth saying it went viral on TikTok. Lucky says Jason admitted that he produced the record. So there's a lot of people arguing back and forth over that. Let me go on here. Sorry. And then this Lucky account does comment and say, one disagreement with your assessment. I would have exposed the grift regardless of Jason Howerton's dissempery. Many huge MAGA accounts promoted the song too. I think Bongino is still a Trump guy too, but I don't really pay attention to him. Con Inc. grifts from all sides. And the squirrel says, okay, fair enough. And yes, of course, you're right about Con Inc. being one massive grift machine, though I would probably have a broad definition of what is included in that than you do, namely the entire right-wing conservative media sphere. So let me go back up to the top here. Because I just thought that this was really interesting. I'm making sure I showed the whole thing here. Go back. Yeah, I was just making sure I showed the whole thing. So here's the part from Dan Bongino. Jason works with me. Jason is a great guy who texted me last week, blown away by the emotion in Oliver's song. Jason wanted help. He flew to from California to North Carolina to help Oliver get the message out. Yes, that's what he does. He uses digital platforms to spread the word, mine included. This moron below doesn't have a clue about what happened. Imbeciles like this one below, are what decimate our movement. They open their big mouths about shit they have no idea about while sitting on their fat asses criticizing the doers. F this guy. So, if it's true that Jason Howerton promoted this video, promoted this song, it is what it is. But I think, to me, I don't really care if it was promoted or not. That's the thing. Some people take issue because they're like, it went viral and they're pretending like it was authentic and it wasn't. It was promoted. Okay. But I'm focusing on the message in the song. And the problem is that the rich men north of Richmond don't understand us. They don't care about the people. They don't know what it's like to have to make ends meet. They don't know what it's like. JB and I were talking about this earlier. I remember a time when I was waiting tables. I remember going to work at Outback on E. This was right during the 08 housing crisis. Going to work at Outback on E and hoping I could make enough tips that night so I could have gas to go back home. That was real. Do you think the rich men north of Richmond cared about that? That happens under a Republican politician. George Bush was president. But it happens under Obama. It happened under Bill Clinton. It happened under Trump. It happened under Joe Biden. The problem is they have the means and the resources and the connections that a lot of us do not have. And when inflation continues to increase, I don't care if you get a raise or not, you're paying more. And most of them don't know what that's like. And let's keep it real. And those of you who are listening, let me know. Let me know if you've been through this. Let me know if you've ever been to a point in your life where you were ashamed or embarrassed to bring people to your apartment. Let me know. Let me know if you were afraid to even ask someone out on a date because you didn't want them to see your place. Let me know if you know what it's like to live in an apartment and only have a couch. And you're trying to save up money so that you can get a bed, but you're sleeping on your couch. That's the problem. A lot of people don't know what that's like. I know what that's like. I remember what that was like. How many of you worked at restaurants and you were excited to go to work because you knew because you were an employee, you would at least get a free meal? Raise your hand. The problem is that was a couple years ago for me. Actually, more than a couple at this point. That was years ago for me. But that problem continues for a lot of people in this country. It continues. So what I wanted to show you, whether he was promoted or not, that is besides the point. What mainstream media is trying to get you to do is to focus on that and to focus on the fact that he may be a plant by conservatives or conservatives support him, so you should not like the song, so that you're not focused on the message that he's delivering, particularly in reference to the politicians in DC that have fat pockets and you don't have none. I don't agree with the statement that he made about the welfare people, but I'm willing to have that conversation with him and explain to him why I don't agree with that. But what I'm not going to do, and what some people are already doing, they're just like, oh my God, this guy, you can't listen to what he says. Some of the things he said in this song are the same things that Bernie Sanders told you when he was running for office, and you got all on board for that. They will continue to use right and left to keep us divided so that we're not paying attention to the class issue. Yes, the homeless rates are increasing. Poverty is still increasing. Rent continues to increase. Why are people paying thousands of dollars for studio apartments? This is a problem across the United States. There is no more move down south. It's cheaper. People are struggling down south too. So what was interesting to me is that some of the same people who supported that message, not the welfare queens part, but supported that message that he said, that Bernie said, now all of a sudden they don't support it because it's coming from someone who has been promoted by people on the right. And vice versa. Because some of the same people on the right who support his message didn't support that message when Bernie Sanders said it. And you know why? Because we're divided by red and blue. If it's on that team, we don't support it. If it's not on my team, I don't support it. I'm here to tell you to get off the team. It's time to leave these parties. This is how they continue to divide you. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is what they do. Great message about class, great message about wealth and equality, but it was promoted by conservatives, so ignore it. Vice versa. Great message there about healthcare, but it's coming from someone who might be a socialist, so ignore it. It's a problem. But Midwestern Marks are going to interview him, and I look forward to seeing that interview. I believe they said it's going to be September 9th, I believe. Have to double check. But it's on their Twitter, so follow them on Twitter. I've seen a lot of people talk about this story, and I wanted to wait until more information came out because I saw people just losing it all over social media when this song came out. And I've seen people talk about it in different ways, and I feel like the big piece that's missing, it's not even so much about who's promoting the song. It's about the fact that mainstream media is trying to distract you from the class issue that is constantly mentioned throughout the song. They're more willing to criticize Oliver Anthony. Have they spoken to Oliver Anthony? Have they interviewed Oliver Anthony and asked him what he meant by certain things that he said? They're more willing to criticize him than criticize the politicians who do have a lot of money and continue to screw all of us over. Something to think about. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Whenever you're ready, I'll be there. Thank you so much for the tip, Roger. Congrats, Sab. Time to drive to get 25K more Uber customers to subscribe to Sabby. We are doing both Utah and Vermont. Yes. And thank you for this. The government sounds like a jealous girl or boyfriend. Want to know who you're talking to? Who were you on the phone with? I think they think we're cheating on them with the 80s communist Soviets today, Russian Federation, Cuba, and China. Of course, Sab, they want to keep us hooked on junk food and feed private health insurance and pharmaceutical complex. If he's smart, he'll stay away from political parties and politicians, I think you mean. Yeah, from politicians. Thank you so much for the super chat, Ravina. Folk and Americana artists write these songs all the time and nobody pays attention. This guy is straight up copying Tyler Childers and paid for followers and boosts. Hardly organic. Interesting point. Thank you, Perry. Anthony says a lot of good things, but we need to have a dialogue with him and people like him regarding choices facing poor people. Exactly. I agree with 100% about that. We need to have that conversation with him. Hugo, the problem with this country is because we are always looking at our differences instead of our similarities. Yep. Thank you, Disco Phil. Too bad he has a confused view on most people on welfare. It dilutes the impact of the song. We should talk to him about this. I don't think if he's talking to Midwestern marks, I don't think he's opposed to talking to people, that may have different opinions. And thank you, Owe. Tribalism is going to be the end of America. This needs to stop. Our country needs to learn how to love one another again, despite our differences. I totally hear you. Totally hear you. We are going to go into the next story here about Hawaii, and this involves Oprah and Obama. I talked about Hawaii, I think it was the last stream, but more information has been released in reference to these fires in Hawaii. When I spoke last time, I showed you that CNN, MSNBC, they're actually saying that these fires are attributed to climate change. Michael Schellenberger has a different theory. Some of you may remember Michael from the Twitter files. Here's what Michael said. I want you to see this. Michael Schellenberger says, many say climate change caused the deadly fires in Hawaii, but it didn't. What caused the fires was Hawaiian Electric's failure to clear flammable grasses from around electric wires because its focus and ratepayer money was going to renewables. Here's the picture here. So we can see there. And we'll dive into a little bit of this from the Wall Street Journal. Here we go. Hawaiian Electric knew of wildfire threat, but waited years to act. 4 years ago, the utility said it needed to do more to prevent power lines from emitting sparks. It made little progress. Okay. Let's go in here. The utility examined California's plans to reduce fires ignited by power lines, started flying drones over its territory, and vowed to take steps to protect its equipment and its customers from the threat of fire. Nearly 4 years later, the company has completed little such work. Between 2019 and 2022, it invested less than $245,000 on wildfire-specific projects on the island, regulatory filings show. It didn't seek state approval to raise rates to pay for broad wildfire safety improvements until 2022 and has yet to receive it. Now the company is facing scrutiny, litigation, and a financial crisis over indications that its power lines might have played a role in igniting the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. The blaze has caused at least 110 deaths, destroyed the historic town of Lahaina, and resulted in an estimated billions of dollars in damage. The fire's cause hasn't been determined, but mounting evidence suggests the utility's equipment was involved. One video taken by a resident shows a downed power line igniting dry grass along a road in Lahaina. A firm that monitors grid sensors reported dozens of electrical disruptions in the hours before the fire began, including one that coincided in time with video footage of a flash of light from the power lines. So I told you last time that people had different theories about how this fire started. Different theories. Now, Michael went on to say, I want to bring this up as well. Between 2019 and 2022, it invested less than $245,000 on wildfire specific projects on the island. While there was concern for wildfire risk, politically, the focus was on electricity generation. Looking back with hindsight, the business opportunities were on the generation side, and the utility was going out for bid with all these big renewable energy projects. But in retrospect, it seems clear we weren't as focused on these fire risks as we could have been. And he went on to add California. He said the same thing happened in California. Governor Newsom pushed the utilities to spend billions on renewables and cut the budget for forest fire prevention. The result was more forest fires. When they were caught, they blamed climate change. And he has a screenshot of this here. The real reason they blame heat deaths, blackouts, and forest fires on climate change is because they're causing them. Now, this also points to a theory that some had, that they believed those fires were started by arson. We still don't know 100% for sure. But this is another piece of information that you can add to your bag. Now I want to get into the money. Joe Biden wanting to give people in Maui $700. It's very disgusting. Regardless of how the fires started, I want to make sure we focus in on the right issue. The problem is that there are victims and those people need help. And when the president of the United States offers $700 after he begged to give $24 billion to Ukraine, it is a slap in the face, not only to people in Hawaii, but to the American people across the board. This isn't the first time. And it's not just Joe Biden. This is Hurricane Katrina all over again. And I remember, and some of you in the chat remember as well, and we'll get into that in just a second. I'm going to tell you about these similarities in reference to Hurricane Katrina and these wildfires in Hawaii and how the people are being treated. Nick had some things to say. My comrade Nick from RBN also not happy with the way that Joe Biden is treating people in Hawaii. So let's hear what Nick had to say.
In a rational society, Joe Biden will be finished after how he handled the Maui disaster. So we have the most deadly fire in United States history that killed hundreds and maybe 1,000 plus people in Hawaii. But Joe Biden can't even take time to comment on it. Can you imagine how liberals would have melted down if Donald Trump, when asked about the Puerto Rican hurricane under his watch, said no comment?
Something to think about. Let's imagine it was different. Let's imagine it was Donald Trump who did this. How would CNN respond? How would MSNBC respond? Again, this is the problem with partisan politics. People just play for their party.
It doesn't help that as this crisis was unfolding, the Biden administration approved of another $24 billion to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Joe Biden sent half the money that he sent to Ukraine to disaster relief in Hawaii. You can't make this up, fam. They are literally telling you to your face they don't care about you. So as Joe Biden and the United States government is paying for the salaries of Ukrainian government officials, the United States is only sending $700 to Maui fire victims. The U.S. response has been so horrible that Maui residents have been forced to organize themselves and take care of themselves because the government doesn't care about them. Maybe if they would have named Maui Ukraine, maybe they would have got Joe Biden's help.
Maybe, Nick, maybe. $700. What a slap in the face to the American people. I told you they don't care about us. Fiorella has a great point here. Corporate needs you to find the difference between this picture and that picture. Here's the first picture. Some of you may remember this. Let them eat cake, right? Maria Antoinette. There's all the cake around it. Let the poor people eat the cake, right? Joe Biden on a beach, no comment. And this is what was happening. Joe Biden was literally just chilling on the beach while people in Hawaii were like, we need help. Where's the National Guard? You have a military defense budget that's over $800 billion. You should have plenty of jets, plenty of military personnel to fly right in there and scoop those people up, right? What you doing with that money? But this is Katrina all over again. And I want to give you a couple of examples after I play this clip. Shout out to Case Study QB. They're addressing the Maui issue and connecting it to the Hurricane Katrina issue. Listen to this.
We were kind of sitting back waiting for help to arrive, and then nothing was sort of happening. We were just in shock. It was just like day after day. Where are they? I haven't seen, one state, one county, one federal official at any one of the donation hubs where people are most suffering. People are sleeping in their cars.
So now the president has announced that victims of this will be getting some money from the federal government, I believe $700 a person. He did say, like we were just talking about, that he is going to eventually go to Hawaii. Does that make up for this initial lack of response?
Has he gone to East Palestine, Ohio? Seriously, folks, has Joe Biden visited people in East Palestine, Ohio yet?
Joe Biden's Katrina. I don't think that's hyperbole in any way, shape, or form. You saw what happened with George W. Bush. That was the beginning of the end of his presidency. That infamous photo where he flew over New Orleans coming back from vacation in Texas, and he never recovered from that. So if Joe Biden goes 2-3 weeks later, that's just not enough. You hear the death toll of 106 dead. 1,300 are still missing. What does missing mean? You were talking about a death toll that will go probably well into the hundreds, making this the deadliest fire in U.S. history, and the president is MIA. This is something you simply do not recover from, guys, and it didn't have to happen. This is completely an unforced error on Joe Biden's part, more importantly, his handler's part.
Want to pause here for a second and comment on the number of people that are missing. Some of those people could be like buried under the rubble. I mean, are they even digging? Do they have people digging to look like? That's a lot of people missing. Makes me feel some kind of way.
I mean, Democrats are the party of big government, but why have all that government if it's not utilized when it's needed most, when, quite frankly, it's really the only time government is truly needed in a time of tragedy like this? Especially, Joe, if you're trying to pay back the people that voted for you. Hawaii is a very democratic island. I know we shouldn't get political, but all the signs are there, yet nothing is happening. It makes no sense. We got to leave it there, Joe. Sad time.
Very well. And very, very good point here, Dana. 700 per household, not per person. What the hell are you going to do with $700? In Hawaii? Hawaii is the second most expensive state in the country. What are you going to do with, you can't get an apartment for $700. What are they supposed to do with that? Now, it gets worse because I'm going to make a connection here. We talk about the connection between what's happening in Maui and Hurricane Katrina. Barack Obama is asking people to donate to the Red Cross. We'll get into his video clip, and then I have some things to say about the Red Cross. Here we go.
Aloha, everybody. Like so many people around the world, Michelle and I have been absolutely heartbroken by the devastating images coming out of Maui and Lahaina over the last week. As someone who grew up in Hawaii, as someone who has taken my family to enjoy the incredible beauty of that island and the hospitality of the people of Lahaina, we now find ourselves mourning the lives that are lost, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the families that have lost so much. The thing about it is, though, thoughts and prayers in a moment like this are not enough.
It's never enough. It's never enough. Like, I'm sorry, but the rich people, and we'll get into this, the rich people that have property in Maui, they're fine. You know, it's just all of a sudden out of nowhere, these wildfires just only decided to attack the poor people. People get tired of hearing thoughts and prayers. Like, seriously, it's just a repeated script. There's no use in telling people thoughts and prayers when nothing doesn't improve. If the problem continues to happen, thoughts and prayers isn't doing anything for the people. You see what I mean? This is not to tell people that they should not pray. But what I'm saying is, how many times are you going to say that? How many times are you going to say thoughts and prayers after every school shooting? How many times are you going to say thoughts and prayers after every one of these wildfire disasters? Let's continue.
We have to step up, and we have to help those families, and we have to help Lahaina rebuild. And the good news is that the Hawaii Red Cross and Malama Maui are mobilizing to provide direct support to people who are desperately in need.
Pause. The Red Cross is a big no. The Red Cross is a big hell to the no, to the no, no, no. And I want to tell you why. The Red Cross has too much overhead. It is a charity. It is not mutual aid. So for people who say mutual aid doesn't matter, I'm going to teach you the difference. Charities are top-down organizations. Mutual aid are horizontal organizations. Oftentimes with the Red Cross, they raise thousands, sometimes millions of dollars, but what they produce doesn't seem to match with all the money that they took in because they have too much overhead. They pay people that work for the Red Cross, people making a lot of money, and then they can't account for where all the money went. And I think back to this with Hurricane Katrina. I think back to this with the earthquake in Haiti. The earthquake in Haiti, the Red Cross raised over what, $500 million? Built 6 houses. What happened to all that money? This is why I am so much, I'm so stern about donating to charities because again, it's top down. It's not horizontal. When you do mutual aid, when I do mutual aid, and we do mutual aid here with the Boston chapter, those products, those supplies go directly in the hands of the people that we raise the money for. We don't donate money to the Red Cross and say to them, hey, okay, you do what you need to do to help the people. No, we go directly to the people face to face. They see us, we see them, and they get the supplies that they need. Problem is, a lot of these charities, they take in all this money that they can't account for because that money going to other people who work for the organization. You don't get to raise, and I don't care. You don't get to raise $500 million and you're only building 6 houses in Haiti, okay? But here's Barack Obama telling you, donate to the Red Cross. I'm telling you, hells to the no. Don't you donate that money to the Red Cross. If you want people in Hawaii to actually see the products and get some supplies, don't you give that money to the Red Cross. You give that money directly to the hands of the people in Hawaii. There are multiple GoFundMes that are set up for people in Hawaii, by people in Hawaii. But don't you funnel that money through the Red Cross. Those people will never see that money the light of day. I promise you.
I'm asking you to do everything you can to generously support the Malama Maui effort. If all of us, the Ohana, pull together and do as much as we can to give back to an island and a town and people who have given us so much, I'm absolutely confident that Lahaina and Maui and those families are going to be able to rebuild.
How do you know that, Obama? How is he so confident? One thing that was really interesting, Obama issued a response before Joe Biden did, as if Obama was trying to step in and cover for Biden. That's been happening quite often, hasn't it? Biden is sitting on the beach. Obama's the one releasing the video. Obama's not president anymore. Why is he still acting like it sometimes? Let me let him finish here.
We've got to be a part of that. So please provide generous support to the Hawaii Red Cross and to Malama Maui right now. Mahalo, nui loa.
I want to show you something about the Red Cross. Even NPR wrote an article about it. We're not going to go through the whole article, but I want to show you. Look, this was June 3rd, 2015. in search of the Red Cross $500 million in Haiti relief. $500 million. When a devastating earthquake leveled Haiti in 2010, millions of people donated to the American Red Cross. The charity raised almost $500 million. It was one of its most successful fundraising efforts ever. The Red Cross vowed to help Haitians rebuild, but after 5 years, the Red Cross legacy in Haiti is not new roads or schools or hundreds of new homes. It's difficult to know where all the money went. It went in their pocket. The people who work at the Red Cross, they got that money. It's really not difficult to figure out where all that money went. Look at this. NPR and ProPublica went in search of the nearly $500 million and found a string of poorly managed projects, questionable spending, and dubious claims of success. According to a review of hundreds of pages of the charity's internal documents and emails, as well as interviews with a dozen current and former officials. The Red Cross says it provided homes to more than 130,000 people. But the number of permanent homes the charity has built is 6. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but somebody explained to me, how the hell do you fit 130,000 people in 6 houses? The Red Cross long has been known for providing emergency disaster relief, food, blankets, and shelter to people in need. And after the earthquake, it did that work in Haiti too. But the Red Cross has very little experience in the difficult work of rebuilding in a developing country. The organization, which in 2010 had a $100 million deficit, outraised other charities by hundreds of millions of dollars and kept raising money well after it had enough for its emergency release. But where exactly did that money go? But Obama wants you to donate to the Red Cross. Don't you donate that money to the Red Cross? Then there's this issue with Oprah. Oprah released a statement saying that she's going to help people in Maui. She's going to help them get supplies. I'm going to play the video and then I got some things to tell you about Oprah. Because she's an interesting figure in reference to this particular story.
Hey, everybody. You know what this week has taught me is that when you don't know what to do, you do whatever you can. I went to visit one of the big shelters here at the War Memorial and asked people what it is they needed, and then went shopping for some things, some, basic things like towels and sheets and shampoo and other necessities. And at some point, I will make a major donation after all of the smoke and ashes have settled here and we figure out what the rebuilding is going to look like. This is going to be a long and difficult process. But spending time at the shelters, I've met so many incredible people. One guy, Julius, I said, Julius, tell me what you need, because his legs were covered in bandages where he had to run to escape the fire, and said to me that he could feel his skin popping as he was running. He got out of his car because the tires were melting and he couldn't move forward and just started to run. And when I said, tell me what you need, he said, ma'am, I need nothing. My life is now my greatest gift. I have my life.
Of course, she would tell you the story of the person who said they don't need anything. Like, what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute, man. You mean to tell me someone has the opportunity to talk to Oprah and she's a billionaire and she's ready to give you money to help you out? And you mean to tell me this person says to her, I don't need anything. I got my life. Really? I'm supposed to believe that? Let's finish up.
I've seen so many families who are sharing a cot, an air mattress, and have nothing else left to their names, but they are so grateful just to have each other. And there is such an incredible spirit going on in this entire community, people helping other people. And I know that long after all the camera crews are gone and the rest of the world has moved on, the rebuilding will just begin. And Hawaiians are a strong cultural people and a family-loving people. And with the help and support, you're going to see a lot of Phoenix stories rising from the ashes here.
Let me just pause and say something here. First of all, we'll go back to the beginning because I want to point out something. I want to tell you guys something. Oprah is incredibly fake. Do you guys know that Oprah used to work for the radio station in Baltimore back in the day? I don't know why she talks the way that she does now. That's not her voice. Where'd this voice come from? Listen, watch this.
Hey, everybody. You know what this week has taught me is that when you don't know what to do, you do whatever you can. I went to visit one of the big shelters here at the War Memorial and asked people what it is they needed. And then
she didn't talk like that. She did not talk like that. Guys, you can Google it. I can't play it on here because of copyright, but you can Google it. You can go all the way back to the very first year of the Oprah talk show. You can go back to when Oprah was a news anchor in Chicago. You can go all the way back to when she was on the radio station in Baltimore. My parents remember because they're from Baltimore. Let me tell you something. She did not talk like that. I went to the station to figure out what the people need. And where'd that voice come from? She didn't used to talk like that. But what was interesting to me is you asking people what they need. Meanwhile, you have property in Maui that's over thousands of acres long. Why can't you just put those people up in your property? You don't live there every day. You have several homes. No, don't come up in my space. Even though I got multiple homes, I know you don't have a roof over your head, but I'm just here to give you some towels and sheets and blankets for you to wrap yourself up in outside because you don't have a place to actually rest your head that's indoors. But I got this whole complex over here, a whole damn compound that you can't sit in. Get out of here. And here she come acting like, here I am, the big savior. I'm Oprah, damn it. And I'm going to help the people. I'm here to do whatever I can. Bullshit. You are looking out for yourself and making sure that you get the savior praise. Oprah's properties, multiple properties. And it was interesting to me. Some people got mad when I said this on Twitter. I pointed out all the freaking rich people that have properties in Maui. Fire didn't touch their properties. Seemed like to me the fire just woke up one day and said, I'm going to only go after the homes and the apartments of the people who are poor and working class. Their stuff is fine. Fine. And why is that? Let me show you another clip here. She has multiple properties. Multiple. This is not the first time that there has been a fire or there has been some type of a flood, and somehow Oprah's stuff just seems to be fine. Listen to this.
Did you know Oprah Winfrey has been securing Maui land like it's a trending bestseller? In just 2023, she invested in a vast 520-acre plot for $3.89 million, then went for another 330 acres at $2.47 million, not to mention the two 10-acre patches she bought in 2022 for $100,000 each. From a mere 100 acres in Maui, Oprah now commands over 1,000 acres. But here's the twist. Amidst this real estate surge, a sudden fire happens, destroying homes nearby, but leaving her vast terrains unscathed. Does that ring a bell? Think back to 2017. A deadly fire consumed homes near her Montecito mansion. Yet once again, Oprah's property emerged untouched. And
what I tell you, This has happened before. You guys ever notice this? When these disasters happen, how come with rich people, their property just seems to be fine? Except for Kenny G. Kenny G's house did catch on fire, but Kenny ain't got Oprah money, okay? Kenny is a musician. He's a saxophone musician. He's not popular anymore like he used to be, but Kenny G used to be popular back in the day. But Kenny is not no billionaire. Kenny got millionaire money. He ain't got Oprah money. You know what I'm talking about? Montecito, another property that she has. Here comes the fire, but all of a sudden her property the fire just says, I'm not coming near your house. Let's go on.
After that event, she expanded her Montecito land holdings to a whopping 70 acres, even snapping up a 4-acre complex in 2019, which was decimated by mudslides shortly after the 2017 fire. The connections, the acquisitions, and the timing are definitely food for thought. Stay tuned with us for more mysteries and money tales. What do you think about these coincidences? Share your...
It's a coincidence. It's a coincidence, right? This is weird to me. You don't believe me? Look, watch this. Let me tell you how much Oprah loved the people. Controversy over giant wall built along California property reportedly owned by Oprah. This woman built a wall. So it's just, a mystery is bubbling up on the banks of San Isidro Creek, which runs through the exclusive Central Coast enclave of Montecito. Did Oprah build a giant wall next to one of her Montecito homes? During this year's historic storms, Montecito and other towns in the area saw evacuation orders due to flood dangers. Montecito is popular with celebrities, and residents of the area include Oprah, Ellen, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the Duke of Duchess of Sussex. A wall was built alongside a property associated with Oprah, allegedly to protect media mogul and Montecito resident Winfrey's estate from flooding. What about everybody else's home? As much money as Oprah have, you gonna build a wall to protect your house, but everybody else is just screwed? And don't even come at me with but Sabby, that would cost so much money. She's a billionaire. She's rich. Oprah, look out for Oprah. And there's been stories of people trying to grab land in Hawaii from the indigenous people that has been destroyed. There's been stories of this. Now I want to show you, look, this don't make no sense. When we talk about the rich people, this is from Adhu Mankind. Meanwhile, fires in Maui seem to know how to avoid millionaire properties. Watch this. Look at this video. You see this? This is all the millionaire properties right here. All that money, all that wealth. Untouched. You see this? Not a scratch. Isn't that weird? Not one of them. And this is not uncommon. And this is what I'm saying before. This is not uncommon. It's not uncommon for the rich people, for whatever reason, their property is fine. All of that. And even if it wasn't, the thing is, they still got the money and the resources to just buy another property. But I want you to hear from a resident. I want you to hear from a Hawaiian resident that's talking about this. Listen to this. Hawaiian resident showing his frustration with the lack of help and transparency from his local government. Also, he is sharing his exasperation with the state representatives making decisions in behalf of the victims without even visiting their communities and working alongside them. Furthermore, he talks about people who are trying to take advantage of his tragedy, of this tragedy, and require land from locals. I told you guys that people there said they were doing this. As you watch this video, remember all the politicians and celebrities making their way to Ukraine, yet not a single one of them talking about visiting and offering any help to the victims of the deadly fire. So I'm gonna let you hear from him yourself.
Yeah, aloha kako. Here with some things to think about, some topics that are a little bit troubling. And my tone has changed completely at this point because the frustration that we are all facing here on this side, Lahaina side. Now, just a quick reflection of the week that we've all had, right? And I'm sorry that a lot of what I'm coming with for the people to see is just bad news, but that's all the news I have to give right now. And the common denominator for all of the bad that has happened in Lahaina is the state of Hawaii. All of the good, common denominator is the community of Hawaii. What's the difference? The state is supposed to represent the community, yet everything to do with the state has been bad. Everything to do with the community has been awesome. Okay, so day one, fire, no sirens.
Yep.
Fault of the state. Fast forward, no goods coming into Lahaina. Obviously, we need to get it. Roads are closed to everybody. By boat, by plane, following in convoys. People had to break the rules to get into Lahaina to bring the much needed goods for the people. Okay? The state again. And we had to break the rules to get our goods into us. What would we have even had if we didn't? We would have nothing. There's what, 2, maybe 3 distribution centers in all of Lahaina that are set up by the state and county. We would be starving.
So notice he's making the difference here between the community help and the state. And again, this goes back to looking for the politicians to come and help you versus the people in the community actually helping you. This goes back to mutual aid and looking for a political hero or savior to come in and swoop down and rescue you. And at the end of the day, a lot of times it ends up being the community coming to help you. Look at how these people have been abandoned by their own representatives. Tulsi Gabbard spoke out about it. I don't know if she's there on the ground or not, though, but I know she spoke out about it. But I mean, where's everybody else?
People would be parched. People wouldn't even have clothes. Everything community-based. Good. Open the roads back up. Open floodgates to the tourists and everybody just hours after community members were allowed back in. Ended in chaos. Bad state. Again.
Thank you, LPA. LPA says Tulsi is on the ground. Thank you.
Placard system. Ended in chaos. Unorganized. Police want the where they were giving it out in Napili. People were lined up for miles, thousands of people. 1 police officer to direct traffic. Traffic on both sides of the road. People parked on the side of the road, walking across. Chaos. Opportunity for danger. All of it was dangerous. Opportunity for people to get hurt. Maybe 6 or 7 people to distribute the placards to the people. Ended in chaos. Again, the state.
See?
Now we're about to open everything back up. I don't understand why we're so eager to do this. Why does Lahaina have to remain open to everybody? Public, yes, okay. Community, Lahaina residents, Maui residents, for sure, yeah, allow them. Tourists? What is there? There is no possibility for revenue to be made out of Lahaina.
I had no idea until I saw this video that tourists were still coming there. I would have imagined that would not be happening considering the damage from the fires. I mean, what are you? what are you going to go see like right now? So that was kind of surprising to me, but it seems like to me, again, the state trying to find ways to make money.
There's nothing. The hotels are closed. The shops are burnt to the ground. Restaurants are not running. But no, we're so eager to open up the floodgates to let them all in.
Yep.
Bad state again. You watch tomorrow. There's going to be issues. I guarantee that. There are still down power lines on the road. Places where the road merges into one. Tourists already had a hard time driving around prior to this. Now there's all this hazard. All these hazards all over the place. So many things going on. People are going to be looking around, not paying attention to the road. Accident. Now our main lifeline back into Lahaina, closed again. We are not focusing. We are, community, we're focusing on what's most important. That is making sure our community members are well taken care of. That is what's most important. The state, their focus is all over the place.
Yep.
And they expect us to trust them. I do not. I don't.
Let me scoot up just a little bit more because there's more here, I think.
Which we are focusing on is making sure that our people are well taken care of. We can't even focus completely on that because now we have to focus and make sure that the vultures don't come in and take from us. And if they're already working. I can tell you guys.
See, listen to this.
Is that there have been people skeptical about it, telling me, oh, it's just nobody's trying to come and take your land and blah, blah, blah. No, they are here. They are here. I see them with my own eyes. I see them working. I will be posting something about that very soon, about specific names.
What I tell you. What I tell you. I told you guys that information isn't coming from a media outlet. That information is coming from a Hawaiian resident who is just it looks like a cell phone right in front of his face, just telling you like it is. That's not coming. CNN isn't telling you that. Fox News isn't telling you that. MSNBC isn't telling you that. I told you that there were reports that people were trying to take their land, trying to get that land, just like that. Just like that. Connection to Hurricane Katrina. When I think about Hurricane Katrina, I remember people, when the government finally did show up, I remember that people from New Orleans were sent all over the country, right? So my next door neighbor, I was in senior year at University of South Carolina. My next door neighbor that moved out, there was a family that moved in. They were from New Orleans. They came in after Katrina. They had put them all into one apartment. I think that was a 2-bedroom apartment, but they put them all into one apartment. They were very friendly. And the grandpa was with them. This is all like, it was extended family. The grandpa was with them. The grandfather told me, he said, you know, we're happy that they found a place to put us. He said, but this is not home. This is not our home. New Orleans is our home. He said, that's all I've ever known is New Orleans, you know? And he told me some things. He told me about how they were abandoned. The government just ignored them. People sitting on top of the roof of flooded homes. You had celebrities like Tim McGraw show up before the president did. Now, that was under a Republican president. Now, what we have happening in Maui, that's under a Democrat president. What's the difference? The people are still abandoned. The people are still forgotten. That's why I told you it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the party is. They put the people last. So when you think about the people like just dealing with the hopelessness in Maui right now, this reminds me of Hurricane Katrina all over again. By the way, when New Orleans was rebuilt, I highly doubt that most of those families that were moved from New Orleans and sent to cities like Columbia, South Carolina, and Baltimore, Maryland, I highly doubt most of those families were able to go back to New Orleans and live again. You know why? Because when they did rebuild, They increased the price of the properties. That guy told me, he said, we went from having our own home in New Orleans, generation of families lived their own home, to a small apartment, us being all in one small apartment. What do you think is going to happen in Maui when they rebuild? How much will the properties cost then? Who's going to be able to buy those properties? What's going to happen to the indigenous people of Hawaii? Where are they going to go? This is something we need to think about. Because I really do feel like this is Hurricane Katrina all over again. Go to New Orleans now. A lot of those people who were born and raised there couldn't afford to go back. What exactly are they going to build? Because a lot of times when there's rebuilding, they make the properties nicer than it was before, so they increase the price. And as that gentleman just told you, people are already trying to take the land. This is the information that mainstream media should be telling you, but they won't. People got to make videos on Instagram. People have to make videos on TikTok to show you what's really happening to the people, because mainstream media won't tell you the truth. Go to some of the comments here. It's a hot mess. Thank you, Perry, for the super chat. This is a land grab. Get the poor people out and replace with luxury hotels and military bases for war with China. You see that? Violin says people on the ground are doing the job the government refuses to do as usual. Thank you, Roger. Joe didn't even revisit the Iran deal. The Iran deal. Your trip. Matt says never waste a good crisis. Robert says they pay lip service while dripping some crocodile tears while having no real skin in the game. Remember Osteen during Hurricane Harvey? Joel Osteen, he's one of the television preachers, televangelists. He didn't want to let people come into his church during the disaster. Can't come up in here. Lord to save you, but not in this church. Yeah, he was exposed. I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you. Thank you for the tip, Jim. There's a food bank in Lahana. I don't know the exact name, but I'm sure they have a website. Thank you. And thank you, Roger. You don't have to read the article, but the title regarding Red Cross goes back further than Haiti, says it all, and why I regret donating to them. And thank you for the tip, JVB. Thank you, Sabby. You are golden. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's like when I tell you it's a hot mess, it really is a hot mess. Like people are acting like this isn't happening. Like these people aren't lying to you. Thank you, Disco Phil. News Nation and CBS News have stories on YouTube about developers trying to buy land from locals. Thank you, Disco Phil. News Nation is pretty all right. I think they're supposed to be like in the middle. We'll go to the next story, the next part of Type V and C, Eric, whenever you're ready. News Nation, I think, might be all right. In some ways, you know. In some ways. All right. If you have not had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button, guys. That helps me out with the algo. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to this story about Donald Trump. I'm sure you've heard by now that Donald Trump has been indicted again. I'm not surprised. This time it's in reference to Georgia. And based on what I've seen from all the other indictments, this one might be the one that they really get him on. We're going to go ahead and get started with this clip from CNN when they announced that he was just indicted in Georgia. And then I have some other things I want to show you in reference to polling as well. So let's go ahead and dive right in.
I want to bring you up to speed. An Atlanta-based grand jury indicted former President Donald Trump on state charges stemming from his efforts to overturn Joe Biden's victory over him in the November 2020 election in Georgia. This is historic. This is the fourth time Donald Trump has been indicted. Let me bring in Caitlin Collins right now. Caitlin, I'm not sure if you have the indictment unsealed. Is Caitlin,
Yeah.
is Caitlin there? And tell us what is in this indictment? Is it just of Donald Trump, or are there other individuals?
It's of other individuals. Obviously, it's a 98-page indictment. It's going to take us a minute to read through. But Jake, one of the most important parts, of course, is not just Trump's name is on this, but it's the others that are on this. And so we've got Donald John Trump, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Mark Meadows is on here, Jake. Ken Cheeseborough, that's another unindicted co-conspirator in the previous indictment. Jeffrey Clark, that's the former Justice Department official that wanted to be named the acting attorney general, nearly did. Jenna Ellis, the Trump attorney. Ray Smith, another attorney. Robert Cheeley, Mike Roman, that's the Trump campaign official who was handling fake electors in that time period, Jake, from the election to through December. He's someone who's also been part of the, he had met with investigators in Jack Smith's investigation. His name is on here. And David James Schaefer, that I believe is the top former Republican official. He was in a campaign fundraising role that is also part of this and was someone who was part of that fake elector scheme involved in that. And so those are the names that I'm reading off this sheet right now that we see. Several different charges. We're waiting to see which ones, of course, apply to which people. But I mean, the first name that stood out to me, a lot of them are obvious, but Mark Meadows being on there. Obviously,
That's
he was
fascinating.
Trump's, Trump's chief of staff at the time.
If it's the White House chief of staff, and one of the things that's interesting about that is that there was no suggestion in the federal indictment of Donald Trump and 6 unnamed co-conspirators, 4 of whom at least are in this indictment as well and named. That's Giuliani, Eastman, Cheeseborough, and Clark. But Mark Short, Vice President Pence's chief of staff, told me that Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff at the White House, was the ringleader of the whole conspiracy. And he suspected that because Meadows was not a co-conspirator in the federal indictment, that he was cooperating. So it is interesting indeed that Mark Meadows is indicted in this state indictment.
Yeah.
So let me pause here for a second and just say this. That's pretty much all you really need to hear about that. And we'll get into the next clip because you've probably heard most of this by now anyway. We got to talk about something for a second. I'm not even here to tell you that Trump is not guilty. I think Trump is guilty. My issue is consistency. My issue is the fact that this is politically motivated. And there's no consistency. Where was this same amount of accountability and consistency with Bill Clinton? Where was this same amount of accountability and consistency right now with Joe Biden in reference to Tara Reid, the accusations from her, and in reference to his business dealings with his son, Hunter Biden, where there's no consistency? It's all about what benefits such and such party at said time. That's the problem. And I'm supposed to sit here and believe it's hard for me to take it seriously because I'm supposed to sit here and believe that CNN and MSNBC and all these other channels, all of a sudden they really care about accountability. But when it is a Democrat politician, they don't care. That's why I give you side eye. When people say, why aren't you criticizing Donald Trump? Why aren't you doing it? Donald Trump, number one, is not president right now. Joe Biden is the president. I didn't even have this show when Trump was president. So there's that. Number two, I've said multiple times that I don't think Trump is innocent, but it's the timing. It's the inconsistency. It's the fact that I have never seen them go this far with any other former president in my adult life. Have you? That's the problem. I think we all know what this is really about. This is really about the fact that they do not want him to become president ever again. But that is not their decision to make. And I don't support Trump. I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not voting for Trump next time around. I don't support either one of these parties. But I am saying this, that is not their decision to make. That's the American people's decision to make. And had it not been for Trump deciding to run again, I don't even think they'd be going this far. You mean to tell me, come on now, all of Trump's business career, all the shady dealings that he's had before he was even president, everybody loved him back then. Rappers loved Trump. He was in all the rap videos. Everybody loved Donald Trump when he wasn't a politician. And there were multiple times when he had lawsuits for business dealings. But everybody loved him. Oprah brought him on her show. She was kissing his ass. But the moment he became president, then it was like, oh, no, we don't like him anymore. He's a bad person. He has bad business practices. You knew that before he was president. But y'all loved him back then. But it's the hypocrisy and the inconsistencies. And I think Glenn Greenwald points this out so well. And I'm going to play a clip from his system update because I want you to hear this. There's a lot of hypocrisy. We want to talk about election integrity. Where was this same push from CNN and MSNBC when the Democratic Party, when the DNC cheated Bernie Sanders? Where was that same push? Most Americans that I talk to, when I tell them about the DNC fraud lawsuit, most of them have never even heard of it. We want to talk about accountability. Why don't we talk about that? Why don't they talk about Debbie Weiserman Schultz some more? Why is she sitting on a committee after what she did through the DNC, how they cheated Bernie Sanders? Nobody talks about that. When we talk about election integrity, that just goes over by the wayside. And Bernie Sanders went right with them. But I want you to hear about the hypocrisy, and Glenn sums this up so well.
This is or harms other elites, people like Bernie Madoff, who actually stole from a lot of rich people. There is a tendency not to bring criminal charges against them, except this has now been completely abandoned, but not as a general proposition, but only with regard to Donald Trump. He spent 77 years involved in all sorts of transactions that left a lot of people angry, was sued up, was never charged with a crime, and I guess you're now supposed to believe that at the age of 76, he has turned into a chronic criminal. It's a gigantic coincidence that he amassed a huge amount of political power and exercised it in a way that angered every sector of institutional authority in the United States, every sector of American power. The U.S. security state turned against him from the start. The corporate media was united against him. Almost every politician in establishment Republican politics, either publicly or secretly, despised him. I guess you're supposed to believe, if you want to view these prosecutions as valid, that all that is a gigantic coincidence, that Donald Trump simply broke the law repeatedly, violated the law, the criminal law, committed major crimes in a way that requires, in each of these cases, the law to be pioneered, for new sorts of legal theories to be embraced about what is a crime and what isn't, and that none of it has anything to do with political motivation, with residual anger over the way Trump exercised political power, and especially with fear that Donald Trump is leading most public opinion polls, not just within the Republican primary, but also in a head-to-head matchup with Joe Biden to regain the presidency in 2024, something that leaves most establishment centers of power in the United States aghast. Now, we have, each time President Trump was previously indicted, spent the show dissecting the indictment, dissecting and analyzing the legal issues raised by them. It's not entirely necessary to do so with this latest indictment yesterday from the grand jury in Georgia at the hands of this Fulton County District Attorney, because it's extremely similar in its factual framework to the indictment on a federal level that was brought by Jack Smith just a week ago. Jack Smith's indictment, the second one, the first one was about Donald Trump's alleged carelessness with classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, which, as of course you know, if anyone is careless with classified documents in our media and political elite, they're instantly charged with crimes.
He's being sarcastic. So with that particular indictment, like I said back when I covered that story, again, where was that same accountability for Bill Clinton? Also, same thing, classified documents. Joe Biden has admitted publicly to having classified documents going back to when he was vice president, right? So that's what I mean about the consistent. They're just inconsistent. It's just all about what works for that party at that point in time when it's convenient to work for them. And right now, it's convenient for them to not have Trump back in the White House again. It's also convenient for them not to have Trump back in the White House again so they can continue this war with Russia and Ukraine, right? Think about that.
Of course, that's exactly untrue. They leak classified information every single day. No one cares. Everyone knows that's part of the game. Trump's not even accused of having done that. And yet he's facing major felony counts, which for me, that combined with the absolute joke of a prosecution brought by the very liberal Democratic District Attorney Alvin Bragg in Manhattan, which was the first one, reveals the sham that's going on here, how transparently the law is being politicized and abused. The third indictment, the first federal one, which was the second federal one, which was brought by Jack Smith, alleged that Trump's efforts to contest and then invalidate the certified results of the 2020 election that certified Joe Biden as the winner and Donald Trump as the loser was criminal in nature. And that's exactly what this new indictment in Georgia alleges. It's based on almost the same facts. The district attorney interviewed almost exactly the same witnesses as Jack Smith interviewed. It's based on essentially the same set of events as that federal indictment. In fact, there's supposed to be prohibitions on things like double jeopardy and being accused of crimes twice for the same set of events. And yet here we have this district attorney in Georgia who has now succeeded in convincing a grand jury, which of course is very easy to do, to return indictments against Trump and 18 of his political allies. And the reason this indictment is more serious in terms of the dangers posed to Trump is because Georgia law has been shaped for many decades by a political so-called tough on crime mentality. And it's one of the reasons why I think people on the right and conservatives who typically cheer for that kind of a ethos need to think twice about whether handing prosecutors this very broad and permissive and sweeping ability to define crimes that take away rights from the defendants, the people accused of committing their crimes in the name of being tough on crime, whether that has the potential to criminalize all sorts of behaviors and provide huge amounts of discretion in the hands of whoever becomes prosecutors to turn almost anybody into a criminal or a felon for actions that really should not be criminalized. We are going to spend a little bit of time just going over the key details of this indictment on the way to putting it into its key context. So first of all, here from the Associated Press, yesterday is Trump and his 18 allies charged in Georgia election meddling as the former president faces his fourth criminal case. Quote.
So one of you were asking in the chat, which number is this? This is the fourth indictment, and this may not be the last. I'm just keeping it real. I don't know what they're going to come up with next. I don't know what's coming next, but this is crazy. They wouldn't go this hard at Joe Biden, man. They wouldn't go this hard at Joe.
Donald Trump and 18 allies were indicted in Georgia on Monday over their efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss in the state, with prosecutors using a statute normally associated with mobsters to accuse the former president, lawyers, and other aides of a, quote, criminal enterprise to keep him in power. The nearly 100-page indictment details dozens of acts by Trump or his allies to undo his defeat, including beseeching Georgia's Republican Secretary of State to find enough votes for him to win the battleground state, harassing an election worker who faced false claims of fraud, and attempting to persuade Georgia lawmakers to ignore the will of voters and appoint a new slate of electoral college electors favorable to Trump. Now, that kind of blurs the line between the prosecutor's description of events and the media's accounting for them, although, of course, when it comes to corporate media, there won't really be any line. They're 100% on the side of these prosecutors. I mean, almost every one of these indictments, they barely disguise or attempt to disguise their glee over these indictments being brought. But the whole criminal case, like the one brought by Jack Smith, is contingent upon the belief that when Trump claimed the 2020 election was the byproduct of fraud, he A, was lying. There was no outcome determinative fraud. B, he knew he was lying. In other words, he wasn't pursuing claims that he thought were valid or had any good faith to them. And that C, the methods he used were unlawful to overturn the election. So, for example, in that call to the Georgia official, you can look at these words of, I just want to find 12,000 votes or 11,800 votes. And if you believe that Trump's claims of election fraud were totally false and that he knew they were false, then you can look at that conversation with one interpretation, which is Trump was trying to coerce or encourage politically favorable officials in the state to fabricate or find fake votes in order to give him an election that he knew he had in fact lost.
Yeah, there's different ways that they can argue this, or that, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Trump probably has like the best attorneys. Like, this is not the first time Trump has been in trouble legally. Before he was president, he had issues legally. But the way that Glenn just described it, like, they can like argue it that way and say that he was trying to do this thing. But again, the problem that I have, even especially with this particular situation, is, I mean, who are we? Who is the Democratic Party? Any of them? Who are they really to point fingers at people for cheating? And the reason why I say that is because where's that same accountability for the DNC? There was none, right? What did the judge say at the DNC fraud lawsuit? That the DNC's private corporation, so they can do what they want. They don't really have to allow you to have Bernie Sanders as the nominee or give super delegates to Bernie Sanders, even though he won them fairly. They don't have to do that. They do not owe you a fair election. That's what was decided in the court. So we got some problems here. This is what I'm trying to, again, both parties have this issue. And I'm gonna fast forward a little bit here because it's not just Donald Trump. If we want to talk about Georgia, let me get to the Stacey Abrams issue. We want to talk about Georgia. I'm doing this right. Okay, yeah. There's also the issue with Stacey Abrams. Let me make sure I'm lining it up right.
Who said, yes, this indictment is about protected free speech? Of course they all say that it's not. You have to actually look past that claim and see whether it's valid. And if you look at these events in this indictment, just like in Jack Smith's indictment, the question of whether Trump really believed that there was election fraud and whether he really believed because his lawyers told him that these were valid means of contesting election are critical because it changes the interpretation of everything. If Trump genuinely believed there was voting fraud, and I know for sure a lot of his followers do, and I believe Trump did as well, despite having been told by some people that there was not enough voting fraud, including Bill Barr. He was told by a lot of other people that he trusted more that there was. And yes, state of mind is crucial for a crime. It is in every single case. If you take a car and run somebody over because you hate that person and want to kill them, that is a completely different act under the criminal law than if you take that car and are drinking and run into somebody by accident whom you don't know and have no intention to kill, even though it looks exactly like the same act.
Exactly. See, Glenn is so smart. I don't know if you guys watch System Update. If you don't watch System Update, you should. Preferably watch it on Rumble because you get the full show on Rumble. But that's a good point to point out. And again, like, I'd like us to go into things thinking in a way, just because you don't like someone or you don't want someone to be president again, that doesn't mean that what they were fighting against is wrong or is right. You have to go into it still with the open mind. Now, Glenn, lawyer, he has to do that, right? As an attorney, like, you have to do that. But what I want to point out is, how is this that different from what Stacey Abrams did Remember when Stacey Abrams said she refused to accept the results? How is this so much different? And where was that same, push or, any type of like indictment towards Stacey Abrams when she made those claims and she refused to accept, those results? But see, because she's a part of the Democratic Party, they just kind of see it's okay because she's on their team. And that's one of the biggest criticisms that I have about both of these parties is that if it's someone that's a part of your party that is accused of being in the wrong, there's all these excuses for why they did what they did. Most of the time, they're not held accountable, depending on who the party is at that point in time. It's not fair across the board. Let's let him continue.
When the only difference is what's going on in your mind. And then if you can prove that you took that car and ran that person over because you actually heard voices in your head as a result of a mental illness, that someone in your head told you to run that person over, or you hallucinated that they were coming to kill you and you could prove that, you won't be guilty of any crime at all because you lack the requisite criminal intent. Intent is everything in the criminal law.
Although I will say, I do have to disagree with Glenn here because there was a case here in Massachusetts years ago where I think he had just turned 18-year-old kid was texting and driving, and that's illegal in Massachusetts. He was texting and driving, and he accidentally, ran into the car in front of him because he was texting and driving. Those people actually died. The people who were in the car died. Now, when he got behind the wheel, he didn't have that intent on obviously running into that car. He looked down for a second and then looked up and it was already too late. But that 18-year-old boy, he was just about to graduate from high school. They sentenced him, I think it was 3 years minimum. They said 3 years minimum to jail. They found him guilty still. Manslaughter, they said. So I don't know. Because sometimes, even if you don't have that intent, you can still be held accountable. The question is, did Trump have that intent? Did Stacey Abrams have that intent? That's the question, I think.
And it's so much reminds me of everything that Russiagate was based on, where Trump stood up in a press conference and said, Russia, if you're listening, maybe you can get Hillary Clinton's emails. He was mocking the media so blatantly and flagrantly, using that kind of satirical tone that he always uses because they were asking him about whether he had worked with the Russians to hack into the DNC's emails. He thought it was preposterous. And so we said, Russia, if you're listening, maybe you can find those missing Hillary Clinton emails. And they decided to interpret that earnestly as some sort of direct request to the Russians to actually hack Hillary Clinton's emails, as though he would make a request to Russia in front of 100 cameras to undertake an illegal act. They're constantly taking Trump's statements and giving them the worst possible interpretation, often absurdly, obscenely dumb, in order to give it the most nefarious possible reading. And so an example like that, where Trump picks up the phone and he either coerces a Georgia official to fabricate 12,000 fraudulent votes, or he picks up the phone and encourages the Georgia official to find what he believes is there, which is voting fraud, makes all the difference in the world for how you interpret this.
But I think the problem is, though, if he still picked up that phone, like I get it. Like, so again, like Glenn, lawyer, he's going to look at it a little bit differently than I think I would look at it, because the way I kind of see it still, if he still picked up that phone, again, you still complicit in a way.
One of the things I'm increasingly seeing is that when Trump was first indicted, almost every Republican was extremely careful not to defend the prosecutor, including Governor DeSantis, Trump's main opposition. Usually in an election, if your main opponent is indicted, of course you jump on that. You're excited by that. But DeSantis has been very careful, as has almost every other Republican candidate, except the ones who have no chance, who are just there to bash Trump and get on TV for it, like Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson. But the ones who actually believe they're real candidates and have a chance have been very careful to defend Trump and criticize these prosecutors. Obviously, that was easy to do in the Alvin Bragg prosecution because it's so blatantly frivolous, that case. As you might recall, it just alleges that there was like a bookkeeping inaccuracy designed to mischaracterize the nature of the payments to Stormy Daniels as instead a legal fee, and they took a completely unprecedented legal theory to try and turn that into a felony. Something like that would always be a misdemeanor because Alvin Bragg wanted attention and wanted political approval and wanted to be able to, for ideological reasons, turn Donald Trump into a criminal by dragging him in before a Manhattan jury, knowing they will be politically motivated against him. What I'm now seeing, though, is not so much Ron DeSantis or other candidates coming out and defending these prosecutors because they know Republican voters don't want to hear that, but there are a lot of people, surrogates and the like, people online with a lot of influence who support DeSantis, who are increasingly getting very vocal about starting to defend these prosecutors.
There's a reason for that. I'm gonna let me fast forward here because I gotta tell you there's a reason for that, and I think it has to do with the polling that I'm gonna show you guys, which I did predict this was probably gonna be the case in reference to the polls, because I've been watching these numbers like every day, like the poll numbers every day. And Ron DeSantis is not appealing to a lot of people. And that's not good for all of his donors, because there are companies that have invested a lot of money in Ron DeSantis and they're banking on him. And he, according to them, he should be doing much better than he is right now, considering all the money that's been put behind him. Typically, that's how it works. The person that has the most money, they're the ones that get the more attention. They're the ones that are usually polling higher, that type of thing. Even when you look at someone like Bernie Sanders, grassroots campaign, 2020, Bernie Sanders still had the most money. So what we tend to look at here in this particular situation, I believe, and I'll show you the numbers, I believe that the reason why that is happening, what Glenn just said, is because Ron DeSantis is not doing as well as they think that he should be. In fact, his numbers continue to decrease. And every time Trump gets indicted, his numbers increase again and again and again. And they just increased again. So if you put all that money behind Ron DeSantis and you're like, dude, what the hell is up with this guy? Why does he continue to sink in the polls? Trump is on his fourth indictment. Why the hell is he continued to increase in the polls? That's something to think about. Maybe they should not have invested in any of these politicians, but it's not a good look, particularly if it is true that they went to Fox News and said that DeSantis is going to be the person that we focus on. We're not going to get behind Trump this time. And Trump is blowing him out of the water in the polls. Then that's going to be a problem. Think about it. Let me scoot forward a little bit here, because I think I'm looking at the time and I know I got to jump into. Okay, here we go.
Is that Donald Trump did exactly that was illegal. He definitely sued in court multiple times and lost, which is absolutely his right to do. He told Mike Pence what he heard from his lawyers was Mike Pence's ability to do, even if it wasn't, which is act as that vice presidential role and reject as certified results ones that he regarded had evidence of fraud and send them back to the states. He arranged for an alternative state of electors to be ready to be anointed in the event he could prove that there was fraud. Well, what about this is criminal? Which of these steps are illegal? You really have to stretch the law to make it into a crime. I'm not saying it's impossible, but this is what I've been saying from the beginning. If we're going to abandon decades worth of consensus among Washington elites and the political and media class, consensus that I have not shared, that I have rejected, but I only want it abandoned if it's going to be applied legally to equally to everybody. I don't want it to be a one-time only exemption for Trump. I had been arguing since the beginning of writing about politics that the media's fraudulent neutrality or posture of not having opinions or not being subjective was devastating to journalism because everybody knows it's a fraud. And that, of course, sometimes as a journalist, you have to take sides if one side is saying something untrue and the other side is saying something true. The example I always use was the use of torture methods by George Bush and Dick Cheney that had been regarded as torture in every single jurisdiction, including American jurisdictions, for decades. And I don't just mean waterboarding.
Let me just pause there for a second because I want to show you the polls. This tweet was August. Hold on, let me come down because sometimes they show. This was August 16th, okay? Yesterday. Look at this. 2024 National Republican primary shift since August 8th. Trump is at 60%. In this particular poll, 60%. Look at this here. DeSantis was in second place. Look who's in second place now. Vivek Ramaswamy, 13%. This was one prediction that I did make. Now, keep in mind, this is one poll. There are many polls. This is one prediction that I did make that if Ron DeSantis did not choose to, if Ron DeSantis did not decide to focus his campaign, pivot and focus his campaign on the economy and get away from this, we're not going to talk about woke. And if he didn't get some type of personality and get some charisma, okay, that he was going to continue to drop down and Vivek was going to pass him. So in this particular poll, let me see. Vivek has passed him by 13%. Ron DeSantis has 8%. And then there's Chris Christie, Pence, Haley, Scott, etc. Now, this is from RMG Research poll. So if I look at this chart here too, you can see the difference, what's happened, right? So in June, you'll see Ron DeSantis was at like 14%, August 15%. He had a bump like that first week of August, and now 8%. I don't know what Ron said, but something happened. And then you'll see Vivek came from 3%. I told you guys, keep your eye on this one. Keep your eye on Vivek Ramaswamy because he's steadily climbing. He was at 3%. Actually, he was at 0.03 before all of this. 10% first week of August, now 13%. August 11th through the 14th. So, but Trump is now at 60%. And this is what I've been trying to tell you guys. Every time he gets indicted, he continues to climb in the polls. And that's what this is scaring a lot of people. And I'm going to be honest with you. I even think it's scaring some Republicans, especially the ones that were banking on Ron DeSantis to be that guy. Turns out he's not that guy. He's not even charismatic. He has no charisma. I told you guys about this. And even with Vivek, like, I don't agree with what he says either. But apparently some people are. When you look at this indictment against Trump, one thing you have to keep in mind again is that this is all political. It's not to say that he's innocent. I don't think he is. But it's not being applied to everybody the same. That's the problem I have. We're going to dive into Vermont. There's two ballot measures for Vermont. And then, we may have to split this actually. I'm sorry. We're going to have to split this because of time. We're going to do the first ballot measure from Vermont, which is actually a really important one. Vermont, apparently, they still had a slavery clause in Vermont. Let's go ahead and pull this up really quick. This is crazy. This is wild. It says Vermont does not allow its voters the option to place initiatives or referendums on the ballot be they to pass their own laws or ratify their own amendments to the Vermont Constitution. Only the legislator can pass laws independent of voter involvement and place initiatives on the ballot using a legislative referred constitutional amendment for voters to ratify, amending the legislative initiatives within the Vermont Constitution. Vermont Proposal 2 prohibits slavery and indentured servitude amendment. A yes vote supported amending the state constitution to repeal language stating that persons could be held as servants, slaves, or apprentice with the person's consent or for the payments of debts, damages, fines, costs, or the like, and add slavery and indentured servitude in any form are prohibited. This measure was ratified by 88.71%. Yes, like you, I was shocked that this was actually still there. Still there. So Roger says, read the language below, which showed what they changed and put in its place. It says that all persons are born equally free and independent and have certain natural, inherent, and unalienable rights, among which are the enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safetyness. Therefore, slavery and indentured servitude in any form are prohibited. Look at what they removed. Therefore, no person born in this country or brought from overseas ought to be holden by law to serve any person as a servant, slave, or apprentice after arriving to the age of 21 years, unless bound by the person's own consent after arriving to such age or bound by law for the payment of debts, damages, fines, costs, or the like of, and then it goes into slavery and indentured servitude of any form. That is interesting. Yes, that is interesting. Who supported that? Governor Phil Scott, who's Republican. And one of the organizations is Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. That one was wild. Like, I had to do a double take with this one. Roger added, who is that 11% that voted no? Police and corrections officers. That was another thing that was weird to me too. Like, if you look at the results, 88.71%. So who the hell voted no? You have to really be careful. You got to pay attention to the vocabulary that's used. Therefore, slavery and indentured servitude in any form are prohibited. This is interesting. Yes, in 2023, this was actually still in the books. There are some states in this country that still have blue laws on the books. When I lived in South Carolina, North Carolina, I forget which one. One of the Carolinas actually had a blue law in the book that it was still legal to like beat your wife on the courthouse steps on Sunday with anything that was no bigger than your thumb. Weird. Yes. Vermont is a interesting place. I go visit in the summer. I would never live there though. There's racism everywhere, but I would never live in Vermont. I think they got a long way to go. Let me tell you, I think they got a long way to go. Okay, we are going to do call in tonight. We'll do the 50K celebration. Whoopity-woo! So we'll do that. Eric, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. And I think we have super chats to read, Eric. I think you still got to read those chats. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. There we go. I think my system's working here. My system's kind of sluggish tonight. How's everybody doing here on a Thursday night? I don't know. This Thursday kind of feels like Friday, but here we are. Yeah, so we're going to have call-in coming up. This is where we give Sabrina a little break. And then when she comes back, we'll jump over to the call-in. I'm going to put the link in the chat again for the call in, and I think Sabrina usually pins it to the top of the chat. And let's catch up on a few of these comments. Let's see what we had. Thanks for the super chat, Lorez. Oprah is salivating on Phoenix stories for her TV shows. Okay, roll please. Congratulations. Congratulations on 50K, Sabby. So well deserved. Found your mopping interview when you were at 9K or so, if I recall. You and people in the chat never changed, Sab. Thanks for that, Lorez. And thanks for this super sticker, Regine. Thanks for that. And Bill Bradley said, it isn't that Trump is innocent, it's that they are all guilty, but no one else is being punished. Yep, that's a fair point. I mean, this definitely, gets into this whole thing of the concept they put out there that they talk about a lot in Gray Zone is the concept of lawfare, of using the law as a weapon for political tussling and whatnot. Let's see here. We got thanks for this super chat, Sir Bikes a Lot. Hillary, her witnesses, Trump did not. We like to avoid certain words here on the show, so the YouTube gods don't come after us too badly. But thanks for that, Sir Bikes a Lot. And Christine said, anyway you slice it, we are in trouble. Our only hope is Dr. West. And I wanted to highlight that one because, I kind of agree. The only person I've seen out there so far that I can have any real hope for excitement for is Dr. West. And thanks for the super chat, Diane. Oliver Anthony is a giant viral inroad for Dr. West into the white working class. Please tell him to do a live stream or face-to-face conversation with him. Thanks for that, Diane. And I think we got a couple of chats here on the old Rockfin that we'll read out. If StreamYard's going to cooperate here. Here we go. Thanks for this paid comment on Rockfin, Mr. Roger Meadows, who says, I honestly think Bragg was going to stay away from this when he got into office, but in New York, the governor can fire DAs for dereliction of duty. Governor Hochul was a one-term Congress member from a moderate pseudo-conservative congressional district. So she was once under Pelosi. To my fellow New Yorkers, current and former, what are the chances Pelosi, but even more Chuck, leaned on Hochul to lean on Bragg? And I think we got another one in here from Roger. And also, thanks for this one, Roger. For this paid tipped comment on the old Rockfins. Remember in the Georgia governor's race of 2018, Kemp was in charge of elections as Georgia Secretary of State and stayed in that position as he was running for governor, who chose to resign only after he was far enough ahead. As far as I'm concerned, he was hiding votes coming in from black majority districts until he saw there was enough knocked off for him to resign. He chose not to get involved with Trump because he'd be exposed. And thanks for that on the Rockfins, Roger. Yeah, so with the with the whole Trump thing, I mean, what I keep coming back to is that this is it's all theater. It's all left and right, and bashing after each other, and now it's escalated to the point of lawfare and degenerated, but it's you notice what doesn't get talked about. I mean, it's all a distraction game to keep people and keep everyone from talking about the real issue, which is about up down, which is you have a few people, the billionaire class at the top, who use their wealth and power to bend the whole system to their benefit and to keep the money flowing upwards. And it's called corruption. And the thing that makes me a little crazy is when all these stories get talked about and the term corruption doesn't come up. The money, the billionaires, it doesn't come up. And that's that's how they like it. I mean, that's what they're paying. Part of what they're paying for. That's why they buy media. And yes, Emily is saying in the chat, they want us to fight each other, and it's all about that. You know, the left, right, red, blue distraction to keep us from focusing on the up and down and the corruption. And nothing's gonna fix. Nothing's gonna get better in the house until I just got distracted. I said better in the house because of this chat from Roger. Nothing's going to get better until we clean up the corruption and fix up the financing with elections and so forth. And thanks for that, Roger, the old Wolfman Jack in the house. Oh, I remember Wolfman Jack.
No,
he used to talk real cool. He was the real cool guy.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true. It's like they don't, even when it comes to that song that went viral again, like, why do you guys think they're saying, oh, he's supported by conservatives or he's da da da? And if you're focused on that, you're not paying attention to what was said in the actual song. And it's just to distract you. And again,
even
it's
worse,
like
to be blaming poor people instead of blaming billionaires.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. But we're gonna head on over to call-in, guys.
All right, see you in the call-ins. Bye.
All right. Not gonna have a long segment tonight because I do have appointment tomorrow morning, but call in tonight, episode 121, 50K celebration, and we can talk about other things as well. I cannot upload the last call-in episode. I don't know what's wrong. Call-in's been kind of buggy, and I reached out to support for that, the one we did last week. I've been trying to upload it since then, and I keep getting error message. So I don't know what's going on there, but I will say that I reached out to support. If they're still responding to those ticket requests, I don't know. Rumble owns it now. Callin's just kind of all over the place now. But anyway, we'll head on over there and chat and have some fun. And I will see you guys over there. So you know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight. Okay. All right, guys. You can hear me. Okay, good. Yeah, I think they keep making changes to this. All right, Eric. Oh, I didn't